Yes Music Podcast, episode 236, an interview with ARW drummer Lou Molino.
Hi, this is Billy Sherwood of Yes, and you're listening to the Yes Podcast.
This is John Davison, and you're listening to Yes Music Podcast.
Hi, this is Jeff Dales, and you're listening to Yes Music Podcast.
Hi, this is Steve Howe, and you're listening to me on the Yes Music Podcast. Have a good time. Listen. Bye.
Hi, this is John Anderson. You're listening to the Yes Music Podcast.
Welcome to episode 236 of the Yes Music Podcast, one fan's exploration of the world's greatest progressive rock band. I'm your host, Kevin Mulrine. Please remember how you can get involved with the podcast via the various different ways on the site, yesmusicpodcast.com. On Facebook this week, amongst many other things, the first videos of Yes without Alan White and with Jay Shellen have emerged as the band kicked off their 2016 Summer Drama and Tales tour. As usual, it's hardly fair to use audience-shot phone footage to assess how the band are playing, but as far as I can hear from them, the rhythm section is sounding great, which is a remarkable feat by Shellen, who has had to step into Alan White's shoes with hardly any preparation time. The chemistry between Shellen and Sherwood already seems very good, and the ensemble of the band is very promising. In November, there's a Roger Dean exhibition in the Isle of Man. It looks wonderful, and it's called Islands and Bridges. If you can get there, it's bound to be worth it. There was also a great photo of Andre, Steve Howe's guitar tech, showing off the range of guitars on tour, and Preston Fraser has reached the gates of delirium in his review series. July the 25th was Chris Squire Day, and my very small contribution was to listen to Tormato several times, at high volume. Lovely. Forgotten Yesterday's published a chart of what was played on the original Tales tour in 1973-4. I was amazed to see the band abandoned their remembering completely about halfway through the tour. I was under the impression that they played the whole of the four sides every concert. How wrong can you be? I was also very struck by the photographs I've seen at the end of the first concert on this tour, which were taken by various folk, including Robin Kaufman on her iPhone. It's very obvious that there is currently only one, what might be called old-timer on the stage. It was obviously Steve Howe. You may be aware of the great conversation which has been going on in the comments of the YMP episodes on yesmusicpodcast.com about when we can call the band Yes 2.0 and exactly what that could mean. I, for one, am increasingly excited to see that we have more and more compelling evidence that Yes music will transcend the constrictions of individual musicians and live for many years, perhaps generations to come. And this made it even more fascinating to read the highly controversial Team Prog article which emerged this week and was spotted first and sent to me by Bob Keeley. My immediate reaction to it, in common with a lot of other Yes fans, was to disagree categorically that Yes should call it a day. But I also want to take a few moments to consider some of the points made by the author carefully, as several listeners have done on the Yes Music Podcast Facebook page. It states, "The problem is that the current Yes lineup comprises no one's idea of a classic or even particularly credible formation for the band. I don't know who he has talked to, but I see Billy Sherwood, Steve Howe, Jeff Downes, Alan White and John Davison as entirely credible. If you know the history of Yes and those musicians' part in it, then credibility can't be in question. Yes has always welcomed great musicians and dropped them unceremoniously to ensure the music stays the main focus. And that's what's happened with each recent change as well, and will do in the future, I predict." It goes on. "Steve Howe's presence ensures that the whole thing isn't a dishonest farce, but even he isn't an original member." Original member. This is a blind alley in Yes music for me. Yes music is and has always been bigger than the personalities. That's why it's still viable to go out on tour at all, and Yes music will endure despite any changes of personnel. Thousands of fans who buy tickets prove this. I don't think there's anything dishonest about the passion and pride the current members have for Yes music. Next, they're gamely keeping the flag flying on stage, but is there any real enthusiasm for this lineup to make new music? It seems unlikely. Read the Yes fans site. There is always an appetite for new Yes music. Even Heaven and Earth, with all its issues, sold well, and more. Talismanic drummer Alan White has had to abandon the US tour due to an urgent need for back surgery. Surely the last nail in the coffin for the notion that this is actually Yes, rather than a well-intended tribute by Steve Howe and pals. Well, I'd say musicians come and go, as I've already said. It's the Yes way. I've no problem with still calling this band Yes. Again, read the history books. Then the article talks about ARW. The newish band's claim to be the definitive Yes lineup are nothing short of ludicrous, and yet it's hard to deny that by most sensible reckoning, any band featuring the man who sang on every one of Yes's most revered records and the keyboard maestro that most diehards regard as the Yes Ivory Tinkler, not to mention a quintessential prog icon, is going to effortlessly and rightly overshadow the rabble of hired hands and stand-ins currently performing under the Yes banner. Now, I can't remember seeing ARW claim this, and if they did, it would have been an attempt to engage with Yes fans. It's called marketing, and that's fine. There's absolutely no need for this kind of insulting name-calling. The current Yes musicians are fine artists and true fans of the greatest progressive music ever created. That has been abundantly clear to me when I've spoken to band members myself, and one thing beyond anything else which unites them is the love of the music, combined with the desire to see it continue to be played live. And more, the reality is that Yes's fractured and fractious history means that ARW is, at the very least, ever so slightly more plausible as a bona fide Yes lineup than the one that is serving up drama in its entirety and half of Tales of Topographic Oceans across the states right now. More plausible? Well, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But what does it matter? As Jeff Downes said, the more bands out there playing Yes music, the better. It goes on. The obvious and perhaps only worthwhile solution to this whole situation is for the two bands to join hands and give Squire the music he helped to create the send-off it so richly deserves. If that's out of the question, it must surely be time for Howe and his Renegade outfit to knock it on the head and leave us with memories of a band that took progressive rock to the world's stadia and enriched our musical lives beyond compare. So there's no way I can agree with the first part of that. Has the author been to a Yes concert recently? The last two I went to were brilliant, stunning, and I will continue to go as often as I can for as long as I can. The music lives on, and for me, I fully intend to support the band in whatever format it takes. What about you? So thank you once again to everyone who has been getting involved with the discussions on the website this week. If you haven't been able to so far, there's no time like the present to give it a go. And thank you to everyone else who's been in touch in any way this week. Now, here's Mark's 2 pence.
This is 2 Pence with Mark Anthony King.
Greetings, friends. It's time for another 2 pence segment. So before I get started with this week's 2 pence, I'd like to thank everybody who's been participating the last couple of weeks on my little questionnaires that I've been giving out to you guys. I've been finding that I've been really starting to get to know some of you guys a little bit better, and your likes and dislikes and your views overall about Yes in general. So I'm thinking that to continue down this path for a little bit. This week, I have another sort of question for you guys to think about and to answer. What I'd like for you guys to discuss is what 2 Yes albums, and there's that 2 again, 2 Yes albums would you like the band to redo? If you had the chance to come up to them and say, listen, I want you guys to redo 2 albums all over again, what 2 records would you want them to redo? And I'll tell you the 2 that I'd like them to do. The first one is not going to be popular with Kevin, and that's Tormato. The reason why I think that they should do Tormato over again is I think they suffered from a poor sound on this record. I know that they had a bit of production problems on this. I know it was also mentioned in the Progeny box set book that they had the same sort of issue that they had with the live recordings that they had for that box set, where the Dolby units were out of sync and some of the sounds came out sort of odd sounding on the recording. So I think that would help if they would go back and use, technology from today to make it sound that much more better production-wise. And I also think that they could redo some of the songs to maybe better quality. I'm not big on Arriving UFO and, Madrigals. It's okay, but I think that they can do something better with those songs than they did back in those days. I think that their minds were probably elsewhere for a lot of that as well. So, and the second record I'd definitely love for them to redo is Heaven and Earth. Now, I'm sure that's probably looked upon as a real easy cop-out, but I think that if they were to go back and do that album now, after spending as much time as they have now with each other, especially with John Davison, and even now considering that they have Billy Sherwood in, I think that they're much more gelled as a band now, and much more, they know the little nuances of each other a little bit better, how they maybe would write, and what their strengths and weaknesses are. So I think that we would get a much better record if they were to redo Heaven and Earth again. Also, keeping with that in mind, I'm hoping that the next actual Yes record that they do will be a lot better for those very points exactly. So I'd really love to hear what 2 albums you guys think should be redone according to you, and give your reasons why. I'd love to read and see what you guys think and what your opinions are. It's always fascinating to read. So let's get our minds rolling here, and let me know what you guys think. And with that in mind, also, next week I have a real doozy of a 2 pence to slap onto you guys. I'm really excited about that one, to see what you guys think and say about that one. So until next week, this is Mark Anthony K saying bye for now.
couple of weeks ago, Mark let me know that he had managed to contact Lou Molino, and he asked if he would come on the YMP. As you will hear, Lou is extremely generous and open, so when he agreed to the interview, we realised we had had a bit of an exclusive. We talked to Lou about his work with Trevor Rabin, and of course the forthcoming Anderson Rabin Wakeman tour, on which he will be playing drums, and actually, as he says in the interview, singing as well. I'm also very hopeful I'll be able to meet Lou in Birmingham next year and have another conversation, but for now, here's that Yes Music podcast scoop featuring ARW drummer Lou Molino. I hope you enjoy it, and many thanks to Mark for setting it up. Okay, tonight it's an absolute pleasure and a privilege to speak to Lou Molino, and he's going to be playing drums, as I'm sure I don't need to tell you, on the upcoming Anderson Rabin Wakeman tour. So it's absolutely brilliant to speak to you tonight, Lou.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's fantastic to speak to you. So we've just received the news very recently that Alan White, another drummer in the Yes Pantheon, won't be playing with Yes for at least part of the US tour, which starts in just a couple of days' time. And so Jay Shellen will be stepping in. What do you think about that situation?
Well, it's a shame that, Alan has to miss dates, but, I guess they have to do what they have to do. And Jay will be great in the situation, actually. Should be cool.
Do you know Jay at all?
I did meet Jay. I think maybe 1 or 2 times I met him. Nice guy.
Okay, well, we wish them well with that. You, however, you've worked extensively with Trevor Rabin, of course. Can you tell us about how you first met and what it's like working with him?
Oh, okay. Well, we first met I think I was doing an album for producer Paul DeVilliers on an album he was doing with Mark Jordan. And he said, I'm from South Africa and I know Trevor Rabin. I think I'm going to have him come down. He's playing on the record too.
Nice.
And so he had him come down, and that's how we met in the studio. And I just played for a few minutes, and we've been friends ever since.
And so what's his style in the studio? Has he got everything worked out before he comes in, or what he wants you to do?
For my playing or for his playing?
For your playing, I'm thinking out particularly.
For my playing, he may have stuff from when he writes on machine that he'll give me, but he pretty much lets me go in the studio as far as how I feel, what I'd like to play, and he's great with that. Actually, he frees me up. It's like a great movie director who doesn't over-direct the actor. It's really great working with him.
Actually, I got a question for you, Lou.
Sure.
I've been listening quite a bit to some of your prior work with stuff that you've done with Trevor and stuff like that. Do you have a particular favorite song or particular favorite album you liked working on with him?
Well, the Can't Look Away record was a long time ago, but that was great working with that with. I think over at, where did we do that, A&M with...
Many studios, apparently.
Yeah, drums. We did drums at A&M, though, with Bob Ezrin producing. That was great. That was a really, really cool experience. It was really fun. I love doing that record.
Yeah, it's ironic that you mentioned that one, because just for this week's episode, I actually reviewed Can't Look Away for the podcast, and I mentioned it was a really excellent record, and I thought your drumming was pretty top-notch on it.
Oh, thank you. I very much appreciate that. It's a long time ago now. It's been quite a few years.
I'm just curious, how was it working with Bob Ezrin? I've heard several different, stories from different musicians about how they've enjoyed it. How did you like working with him?
I thought he was excellent to work with. He was a really nice guy, and again, just let me go in the studio, which doesn't always happen. A lot of times it's like, we'll do this, play that. But it was a very open experience for me. It was really nice. I really, really enjoyed it. And Bob was really cool to work with, a really cool guy.
Great.
So playing with Trevor, though, it means covering a lot of different styles. It's not just straight-ahead rock with Trevor, because he's got such an eclectic mix of different influences going on. Is that something you enjoy, playing different types of music?
I do. Enjoy playing odd time signatures, stuff that's more challenging. Don't always get to do it. And with Trevor, you never know what's coming, and he'll have something that's pretty straight, and then out of the blue, it's nuts, like Sludge, for instance, on Can't Look Away. When he originally gave me that, it was like, wow, this is great. This will be a real challenge. This is really cool. And so I look forward to those kind of challenging situations.
So with that said, though, I mean, obviously you've also worked with like Billy Sherwood and Tony Kaye and Yoso there, right? So obviously when you're tackling stuff by, because when you guys were together in that, you also did Yes Music as well. So how did you like playing the kind of different drumming styles that like Bill Bruford or an Alan White would do? How did you approach that?
Well, obviously I had to kind of listen to what they did. I couldn't change it up too much, but I did try and utilize my own style in there just to a degree. But I think I like both guys, but I wasn't trying to copy it. But at times you kind of, I guess you have to for the sake of the song. But I enjoyed it.
So obviously you can't give any secrets away of what you're going to be playing in ARW. We understand that. But it will, of course, involve, as I've just said, a lot of Yes music of different kinds. Are you a Yes fan? Have you been a Yes fan for all your life, like so many musicians associated with Yes? And how do you feel about the challenge of playing different kinds of Yes music live with this band?
Well, yeah, I've been a Yes fan for forever. I think I went in Philadelphia to the Spectrum to see Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and when I walked in, I saw Yes written on the back of the cabinet of the amps, and I said, who is this? I didn't know who they were. And it was like, oh, these guys are good. And they were great. The vocals were great. I remember it was quite a long time. It was probably 1970. It was a long time ago. And I've been a fan ever since, that first concert. They were excellent, great vocals, great playing. I think I remember Bill Bruford coming up front and doing Ed Sullivan imitations with a can of beer.
I can imagine that, yes. So when you get going with the guys then, obviously you'll be playing alongside two of the greatest progressive rock icons, Rick Wakeman and John Anderson. And in fact, they've just been made official prog gods according to the Progressive Music Awards. Is that daunting? What do you think it'll be like?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm playing with icons. It's a bit daunting. It's a bit daunting for anyone. But, I have to step up to the plate. This is just something that I need to do, and I've been doing this for a long time, so it's like, okay, I just need to hit this one out of the park. And so, I'm there. I'm ready. I've been ready for a long time for this.
Excellent. So one thing I'm curious about, when I first heard that, or when I first read actually that they were announcing the people who were going to be playing with them in the band now, I got really excited because, like I mentioned to you before, I've known of your work from as far back as like long time ago, like Kim Mitchell times back here in Canada. And I really loved the stuff that you did on Rockland. It was just awesome. That was one of my favorite records. But
really? Wow.
Oh yeah, I thought that was like absolutely brilliant. I thought that your drumming was like out of the park on that. I really loved that.
Wow, thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, and when I read though too that you guys are going to be playing with Lee Pomeroy, I thought, wow, this is going to be like one of like the most fantastic rhythm section. Have you ever met Lee, or what do you think of Lee's playing and stuff like that?
I think he's great. I wasn't familiar, and I've never played with him before. But as soon as I went and checked out some YouTube videos, it was like, oh, this guy played great. This should be a match made in heaven here. I'm really looking forward to playing with him. I just wish we had already played before, but it's okay. It's okay to start. It's kind of like when you watch somebody play, you can kind of get a pretty good idea whether or not you'll be able to play well together or not, because of their style and how their feel is, and I think it's going to work great. So I can't wait to get started, which is, in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Obviously, Rick Wakeman is a huge Lee Pomeroy fan. He's worked with him extensively, and he says he's one of the three greatest bass players that he's ever worked with, alongside Chris Squire and John Entwistle, I think he said.
Exactly. So, yeah, exactly.
So it should be quite fun. The other person, of course, that has been mentioned is Gary Canberra. Now, you know Gary very well, I understand, from the Tubes. Do you know what his role is going to be in the band? He's down as multi-instrumentalist.
Right. He's going to be playing guitar and keyboard for the most part, and I guess singing, and I'm also going to be singing, so I guess there's going to be, but as far as his role, I'm not exactly sure what he's going to be playing, because until we get into rehearsals, we're not really sure what parts people are going to be playing, but pretty much, just guitar and keyboard.
I'm curious, though, about, since you said you haven't started yet the rehearsals, I know, and I'm not expecting you to tell us anything in detail, but I'm just curious about, have you guys discussed, or have you guys emailed any song ideas or set lists back and forth to each other yet?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely been set lists that have been discussed. It's pretty much the early era of Yes, and then also the Trevor era, little later era of Yes. songs that'll be mixed together for the most part. So a little bit of try and fit a little bit of everything in there from maybe the very beginning to the end of the Trevor era, I guess. I think that's what we're going to do. It kind of changes day by day, to be honest with you. That there's kind of we're going back and forth, and there's been a lot of talk. And of course, John would like to do this, and Trevor would like to do this, and Rick would like to do this. But we'll find out soon enough. It's going to have to be pretty soon because we're going to have to lock this down.
Absolutely. And that brings us on to the other question, of course, which is there have been rumours, particularly from Rick and John, perhaps, about new music being performed. Has anything been said about that?
Well, yeah, there has been talk, but I'm not sure whether we're going to actually perform anything yet. It's another thing that's up in the air, because I've recorded some stuff with Trevor, and Rick has sent things, but things aren't finished at this point, I guess is pretty much what it comes down to. So I'm not sure whether they'll be finished in time to include them in the set.
So I'm guessing that at this point you guys are probably still heavily in the writing stage of these new songs, nothing really in any kind of completed form then.
Right. There's actually maybe a couple that are really close to completion, but not totally completed, no.
Fascinating. What are you looking forward to most? I mean, this is going to be looked back on in the future as one of those defining moments in prog rock with these amazing artists coming together, including yourself. What are you looking forward to most about that?
Just to be able to play live again. It's been a while. I've been doing a lot of studio work, and so to be able to go out and play live with these guys is like a dream come true. I'm over the moon about this. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me, probably.
And is that your opinion? You prefer the live to the studio?
Well, I love playing in the studio, but live in front of people, it's just something that's special.
Yeah. I have two questions actually I'd like to ask you if you don't mind. One is, and I know that I would get a lot of heat from my fellow Canadian Yes fans if I didn't ask this, but is there any talk at all about Anderson, Raven, Wakeman doing any dates in Canada?
There have not been any talk of dates in Canada as of yet, but there could be, because there may be dates added, and I'm not really sure where we're going to be traveling.
Because I'm keeping my fingers heavily crossed for that, because I mean all the dates that I've seen so far have been mainly United States ones, and then now we heard rumor well, obviously not rumor, but there's going to be British and I'm guessing European dates as well, but usually Canada's kind of left near the end or somewhere unexpectedly will get dropped in there, so I'm really hoping that that'll get added in as well. Sorry, the other question I was going to ask you really quickly was, out of the Trevor stuff that he did with Yes, do you have a particular favorite
song
or album that he's done with Yes?
Oh, with Yes, probably 90125, if I have the number right.
Yeah.
Mix it up with the TV show, or Big Generator. Either one of those two, I think.
Well, I will be coming to see you in Birmingham, UK.
Oh, you will?
Next,
Great.
March it is. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And of course, by March, I'm expecting the show to be absolutely perfect, of course. But I'm sure it'll be brilliant as soon as it starts. But by the time you get to the UK, I'm sure it'll be very polished.
It's been a long time since I've been to the UK, and I'm looking forward to it. I was there in 1985 when I was in Cock Robin and stayed on Oxford Street, I think, for about a month in a hotel.
All right.
When I walked out my hotel door, there was a store across the street. It said Bruford on it. It's strange. I don't know what it is, but it reminded me of Yes right away. But yeah, it's been a long time. I'm looking forward to coming. I was never in Birmingham.
Yeah, well, the venue in Birmingham Symphony Hall, I've just seen Yes there a couple of months ago. It's a fantastic venue. It's a beautiful hall, and the acoustics are very, very good. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys there.
Oh, great. I can't wait to meet you. Great. Awesome.
Okay, well, listen, Lou, it's fantastic to speak to you. Maybe we'll get a chance to speak to you in Birmingham when you're over in the UK or somewhere else in Birmingham. That would be lovely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you guys for inviting me on the program. I appreciate it.
It's been brilliant to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Olá, sou o Miguel Falcão, de Coimbra, Portugal. Estão a ouvir o Yes Music Podcast.
So that's just about all the time I have this week. Thanks so much for listening once again. I do hope I'll be back next week before I go off on holiday. And in the meantime, please do get involved with the podcast yourself through any of the ways on yesmusicpodcast.com. So until next week, just remember, whatever your progressive rock question, the answer is yes.